I need a new car, can you cosign? My brother's text blinked on my phone screen, smug as always. I stared at it, then typed back 2 words. Keep dreaming. A few minutes later, another notification lit up my phone. This time it was my dad. Big, bold letters filled the screen like a verdict. Refuse and you're cut off from family events. Cut off. From dinners where I was treated like a servant. From birthdays where my brother's gifts were mountains and mine were envelopes of pity. From holidays where my seat was at the end of the table, scraping plates while everyone else laughed. I sat there in the dim light of my apartment, their words echoing like a dare. My brother, entitled and reckless. My father, wielding threats like weapons. Both of them convinced that family loyalty meant blind obedience. But they had forgotten something. My name is Natalie Grant. I'm 27 years old. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. What happens when the family that thinks they can buy your silence learns that you're the one holding the receipts? I didn't reply. Not to my brother's demands, not to my father's ultimatum. Instead, I picked up the phone and dialed a number I had been holding onto for months. A number they didn't know I had. As it rang, I picture my father's face when the foundation he thought was his alone began to crack. The face of a man who believed threats could control me. The voice on the other end answered warmly. This is Attorney Collins. Ready to proceed? I smiled into the receiver. Yes. It's time. And just like that, the game shifted. Attorney Collins's voice was calm, confident. We've prepared everything. All we need is your go-ahead to file the paperwork. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Do it. For months I'd been collecting documents, bank transfers, tax records, property deeds, all the proof of how much I had propped up my family while they called me ungrateful. Every loan in my name. Every temporary favor that turned permanent. Every time they told me it was my duty because I was the responsible one. By morning, the plan was in motion. Quietly. Legally. Meanwhile, my brother's texts piled up. So? Are you co-signing or not? Dad says you're being selfish. Fine, but don't come crying when you're not invited to Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving. The holiday where I cooked the entire meal while they laughed in the living room. What a loss. Then Dad's voice thundered through my voicemail. Natalie, this is your last chance. Family loyalty means sacrifice. If you won't help your brother, you're no daughter of mine. I played it twice, then saved it. Evidence. At lunch, Collins called again. Paperwork filed. Clause 7.2 of your joint accounts protects you from being liable for any of their debts moving forward. And, she paused, almost amused, it also freezes access to the emergency fund unless you authorize it. I grinned. That fund had always been their safety net. Their cushion. Their weapon when they wanted to remind me I wasn't in control. By dinner, my phone lit up again. This time, not with demands, but with panic. Natalie, what happened to the account? Why can't we withdraw? I set the phone down, calm washing over me. For once, the silence wasn't mine. By dawn, the storm had arrived. 32 missed calls. A dozen frantic texts. My brother's messages alternated between rage and begging. You froze the account? Are you insane? Unfreeze it now, or Dad's cutting you out for good. Please, Nat, I already told the dealership I'd be there this week. They're holding the car. I almost felt sorry for him, almost. But then I remembered every time he borrowed money and called it a loan he'd never repay. Every birthday where he got a brand new gadget while I unwrapped a sweater. Every smug grin when Dad called him the future of the family. Now the future looked a little shaky. At noon, Dad finally showed up at my office. He stormed in like he owned the place, slamming his hands on my desk. Natalie, you've embarrassed this family. Do you know what people will say if they find out you turned against your own brother? I closed my laptop calmly. You mean what will they say when they find out you threatened to cut me off from family events because I wouldn't co-sign his debt? Or when they learn I was the one covering the bills behind the scenes for years? His face went red. That was your duty. I leaned forward, my voice steady. No, Dad. That was my choice. And now I choose differently. He opened his mouth, but before he could speak, I pressed play on my phone. His voicemail boomed through the office. Family loyalty means sacrifice. If you won't help your brother, you're no daughter of mine. His eyes flickered. He knew what it meant. Proof. Leverage. Power. For the first time, he looked unsure. I smiled. Game over. Dad froze as his own words echoed from my phone, filling the office. The same threats he'd barked with pride now hung in the air like evidence in a courtroom. You recorded me? He hissed. I shook my head slowly. No, Dad. You recorded yourself. I just pressed save. His jaw tightened. You wouldn't dare use that against me. I leaned back in my chair, calm, steady. I don't have to. Imagine what happens when Grandma hears it. Or Aunt Linda. Or the investors who always brag about how honorable you are. Do you think they'll see loyalty? Or abuse? The color drained from his face. My brother texted again, desperate this time. Nat, please. The dealership called. I'll lose the deposit. Just sign for me. I'll owe you forever. Forever. The same word he'd used the last 5 times. I slipped my phone into my bag and looked Dad in the eye. You wanted to cut me off from family events? Perfect. I'm cutting myself off, too. Except I'm taking my accounts, my business, and every last string you thought you had on me. He tried one last jab. You'll regret this when you're alone. I smiled. Funny. I've never felt less alone in my life. Because I wasn't playing their game anymore. I was rewriting the rules. Dad slammed the folder shut, grabbed it off my desk, and stormed out without another word. My staff watched from the doorway, wide-eyed. I just sat back, steady, letting the silence crown me. For the first time, the threat wasn't hanging over me. It was hanging over him. 2 days later, the wider family knew. Not because I told them, but because Dad couldn't hide it. Word leaked through cousins, then uncles, then Grandma herself. Everyone had questions. Why would you try to force Natalie into co-signing? Is it true you threatened to cut her off? I didn't need to say a word. The voicemail, forwarded to one relative, spread like wildfire. Dad's booming voice, if you won't help your brother, you're no daughter of mine, was now the family's favorite topic. At Sunday dinner, I stayed home, sipping coffee while my phone buzzed with updates. A cousin texted me. Your dad stormed out halfway through. Grandma told him she's ashamed. Said no father should treat his daughter like that. Another. Your brother kept whining about the car. No one had sympathy. Aunt Linda told him to grow up. I almost laughed out loud. The same relatives who once looked past every slight against me now saw the truth. Loud and undeniable. Meanwhile, my brother's text shifted tone again. Nat, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked. Just can you help me, please? I'll work for you if I have to. For years, I'd been the one reduced to begging. Now the roles had reversed. I typed one reply. No. And for once, that single word felt like the loudest sentence I'd ever spoken. Because the power wasn't in the evidence anymore. It wasn't even in their humiliation. It was in finally saying no and meaning it. By midweek, the silence from Dad was deafening. No calls, no emails, no bold demands in all caps. For a man who had spent his life barking orders, the quiet was the clearest sign of defeat. But my brother? He couldn't stop. Nat, I'll pay you back. Just this once. The dealer said they'll blacklist me if I don't follow through. Please, Dad won't help. I need you. Each text was a reminder of the role they had tried to lock me into: provider, fixer, servant. And with every vibration of my phone, my resolve hardened. That night, Attorney Collins called again. Everything's finalized. They can't touch your accounts, and the joint fund is permanently frozen. You're in the clear. I thanked her, a weight lifting from my chest that I hadn't even realized I was still carrying. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for the next crisis to land in my lap. I was free. To celebrate, I drove out to a dealership, not for my brother's car, but for mine. The one I'd been putting off because family emergencies always came first. When I slid behind the wheel of a gleaming midnight blue sedan, the salesman asked, Would you like to finance or buy outright? Outright, I said, handing over my card. The refund from the frozen account made it easier than ever. Driving home, the city lights reflected off the hood, and I realized something powerful. I hadn't just cut them off. I had stepped into my own life fully. They had tried to make me feel powerless. Instead, I had proven I was unstoppable. And their silence was proof they knew it. The face-to-face came sooner than I expected. Saturday morning, a knock rattled my apartment door. When I opened it, Dad stood there, shoulders heavy, my brother hovering just behind him like a guilty shadow. "Natalie," Dad began, his voice low, not booming this time. "We need to talk." I crossed my arms. "Funny, last time you wanted to talk." It came in all caps. He winced, glancing at my brother. "We overreacted. Your brother made mistakes, but he's young. We just thought." I cut him off. "You thought I'd roll over. You thought I'd sign my name, ruin my credit, carry his debts, and call it loyalty. That's not family. That's exploitation." My brother shuffled his feet. "I'm sorry, Nat. I didn't mean." I raised a hand. "No, you meant it. You meant every request, every demand, every assumption that I'd sacrifice myself for you. You just didn't expect me to say no." Dad's jaw tightened, the old pride flickering. "Do you really want to cut ties over something like this?" I stepped closer, my voice steady. "I didn't cut ties. You did, when you threatened me, when you chose his comfort over my dignity. You made it clear I wasn't a daughter to protect, but a tool to use." The silence between us stretched, heavy and unfixable. My brother's eyes dropped, Dad's fists clenched, but neither had words left. I opened the door wider, not to invite them in, but to make my point clear. This is my space, my rules, my life, and unless you can respect that, you don't belong here. They stepped back, defeated. For once, the power was entirely mine. When the door finally shut behind them, I leaned against it and exhaled. The same people who had once dictated my every move had just walked away powerless, their threats hollow, their pride cracked wide open. Weeks later, the fallout became permanent. At family gatherings, their absence was obvious because they stopped inviting me, thinking it would punish me. But I didn't feel punished. I felt free. My holidays weren't filled with forced smiles and endless chores. They were mine, quiet dinners with friends, laughter that wasn't conditional, celebrations where I belonged. The voicemail still lived in my phone, Dad's booming voice snarling. "If you won't help your brother, you're no daughter of mine." I didn't delete it. I didn't need to. It was proof, a reminder of the line they had drawn, and how I had chosen to step over it into something better. One evening, I drove my new Midnight Blues sedan through the city, windows down, music playing. Freedom hummed in the engine, in the road stretching out ahead. This was the car my brother thought would be his, the signature my dad thought he could force from me. Instead, it was mine, bought outright, untethered, undeniable. When I parked, I snapped a photo, me leaning against the hood, skyline glowing behind me. Caption: "Funny thing about threats, they only work if you care about losing what they offer." The likes and comments rolled in. Supportive, admiring. People who saw me not as a freeloader, not as a backup plan, but as someone who had finally chosen herself. And that was the sweetest justice. Not revenge, not payback, just peace. They had tried to cut me off. Instead, I walked away whole. This story shows the bitter truth of family betrayal and the sweet taste of standing up for yourself. Sometimes those closest to you will test your limits, use your kindness, and expect your silence. But when you draw the line, you discover strength you never knew you had. The real lesson is simple. Loyalty is not slavery, and family doesn't mean blind sacrifice. It means respect. Without respect, there is no bond worth keeping. Monetization safe, YouTube friendly, and built to keep viewers hooked, this script carries raw emotion, poetic justice, and a satisfying closure that resonates with millions who've been overlooked or used by the people they trusted most. I bought my dream apartment after 8 years of sacrifice. skipped vacations, canceled birthdays, late nights, early mornings. Every dollar saved was another step closer to peace. So, I planned a small celebration. Just 15 people. Family mostly. Invitations sent a month early. Group texts. Calendar reminders. Even a food menu labeled with everyone's name. I cleaned every corner twice. Lit candles. Pressed the linen napkins. And then, I waited. And waited. Not one knock. Not a single running late. I stood at the door with a tray of cupcakes melting in my hands as the sun dipped behind my brand new skyline view. Then I heard it. A ping. My mom had posted a boomerang with champagne flutes clinking in someone else's house. Proud of our girl's first home. The caption read, a filtered smile. A toast. My name tagged. But not a soul in sight. The photos were taken from my own Instagram. I stood there, alone in the place I built brick by emotional brick, and realized they never planned to come. Not to my party. Not to my joy. Not to me. My name is Ivy Talbot. I'm 30. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. Because what happens when the people who are supposed to show up for your light use it to polish their own reflection? What happens when the place you thought you'd celebrate with family becomes the place you learn to exist without them? I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I turned off the lights, ate alone on the kitchen floor, and when the final candle burned out, I whispered to the dark, you only get to betray me once. I didn't go online the next day. I didn't want to see their likes, their fake congratulations, their digital applause for a party they didn't show up to. Instead, I woke up early, made coffee in my new kitchen, and sat by the window watching fog roll in. It felt strange. I had everything I dreamed of, granite counters, a walk-in closet, real hardwood floors, but I felt like a squatter in my own happiness. That's when the doorbell rang. It was my neighbor, Mrs. Keene. Late 60s. Floral dress. She handed me a tiny potted plant. This place deserves love, she said. You deserve people who water you back. She didn't stay long, but I cried when she left. Later that night, I opened my family group chat. Missed messages. You should have reminded us again. Your brother had his game. Next time, let's just do dinner at Mom's. Then Mom chimed in. By the way, can you help cosign Ezra's lease? It would mean so much.
I didn't respond.
Instead, I opened my banking app. 2 auto payments from my account. One for Mom's cable, one for Ezra's car insurance. I canceled both. I sent a single message. I bought this apartment for peace. Not to be a silent sponsor for people who don't care I exist. Consider this the last payment. Silence. Then 3 dots appeared and vanished. It was the quietest group chat had ever been. I looked around my apartment. Walls I painted myself, shelves I built, windows I cleaned, and whispered, this home isn't for them. It's for me. Because sometimes the people who never show up are the ones who taught you how to stand alone. A week passed. No apology. No surprise visit. Just silence, and then, predictably, a favor. Mom called, voice tight and sweet. Ezra's loan didn't go through. They said you were listed as the fallback cosigner. Could you just... I didn't even let her finish. I removed myself, I said calmly. Like I removed the spare keys I left under your mat. A pause. Then her voice sharpened. Don't punish your family over a little miscommunication. You're being dramatic. There it was. The word again. Dramatic. The word they used when I cried at graduations they skipped. When I sent reminders no one read. When I poured effort into invisible milestones. I said nothing. Just ended the call, blocked her number, and deleted the shared family calendar. That night, I walked to the rooftop of my apartment. The skyline blinked with soft city light, wind weaving through my hair like a lullaby. I wasn't angry anymore. Just weightless. Until I got a DM from someone unexpected.
Hey.
I was at Ezra's party. Your mom said you didn't want visitors. Said you preferred to be left alone. That didn't sound like you. It was Sarah, my cousin from Michigan. She had tears in her voice even through text. I would have come, Ivy. I'm sorry. I replied honestly. Thank you. You're the only one who's asked how I felt. Then she asked something that made me stop breathing. Can I come visit now? I'd love to see your place. I looked out at the view, lights twinkling like promises, and smiled. Yes, I'd like that. Because healing doesn't mean isolating forever. It means deciding who still deserves a seat at your table. Sarah arrived the next weekend with a tote bag, a bakery box, and arms that hugged like home. We sat on the floor of my empty dining area, eating raspberry tarts off napkins and talking like we used to when we were kids, before distance, before adult things, before expectations cracked everything open. She asked, "Do you miss them?" I thought for a while, watching steam rise from our mugs. I miss the version of them I used to believe in. Then I smiled. But I like this silence more than begging for noise that only hurts. Sarah didn't speak. She just nodded, slow and understanding. Later, we went through old boxes, childhood photos, report cards. One by one, I tossed the pieces I'd held on to out of obligation. And as I folded the final cardboard lid shut, something inside me shifted. I didn't owe anyone this apartment. Not the walls. Not the view. Not the happiness stitched together from broken pieces. They hadn't built this. I had. Sarah left on Sunday, leaving a sticky note on my fridge. Proof you can be the light, even when they leave you in the dark. But Monday brought another storm. An envelope from the family lawyer. A formal request, notarized, asking if I could voluntarily transfer part ownership of the apartment to Ezra as a symbol of unity. I almost laughed. Instead, I took a pen, wrote a single word across the form, and mailed it back. Denied. No speech. No drama. Just boundaries, the kind you build when you finally realize. Silence isn't weakness. It's freedom. I thought that would be the end of it. A clean break. A quiet line drawn in ink. But people like my family don't let go when they lose access to what they believe they own. 3 days later, Ezra showed up. Not a call. Not a message. He rang my doorbell at 7 a.m., wearing a tight smile and holding a grocery bag like it was an olive branch. I thought I'd come by and finally see the place, he said. I let him in. Not because I wanted to, but because I wanted to see what the performance looked like up close. He walked around, nodding. Nice space. Could have used a little more light in the kitchen. Mom said you cut corners. I raised an eyebrow. Mom didn't pay for this. He laughed like I was joking, then set the bag down, pulled out orange juice, and poured himself a glass. As if he belonged. As if this wasn't the same man who'd texted LOL when I invited him and got no reply. He walked over to my bookshelf, ran a finger across the spines, then stopped. You know, he said, turning to me, it'd really mean a lot to the family if you just shared the asset. We could put it in everyone's name. Keeps things equal. I took the glass from his hand, poured the juice down the sink, and whispered, equal is when everyone builds, not when everyone takes. He stared at me, stunned, then turned, slammed the door behind him. I locked it, sat on the floor, and for the first time since move-in day, I laughed. Not bitterly, not to hide the hurt, just freely. Because claiming your space means knowing who no longer gets to enter. I didn't expect the ripple, but sometimes standing up quietly is louder than any scream. The next morning, my building concierge slipped me a note. Your brother tried to leave a gift for you. I didn't let him up. I opened the small envelope. Inside was a check made out to me for $500, scribbled in Ezra's messy handwriting. On the memo line, for the walls you think are yours. I stared at it. It wasn't about money. It was bait. A test to see if I'd bite or bend. I didn't deposit it. I didn't tear it up either. I mailed it back, with a sticky note attached. These walls are mine, because I built them. Yours crumble every time someone tells you no. I didn't hear back for days. Until Mom called, pretending nothing ever happened. Oh, sweetie. We're planning a family dinner. Sunday night. Your father wants to toast Ezra's new business. I waited. Nothing else. No mention of me. Of course. I asked. Should I bring dessert? There was a pause. If you'd like. So, I made something special. A cake. But not just any cake. A 2-layer tiramisu, dusted with cocoa, and piped across the top in dark chocolate script. Built without you. I dropped it off 15 minutes before dinner. Handed it to the waiter. Left without a word. Later, Ezra posted a picture of it on his story, cropped so only the frosting swirl showed, not the message. But Sarah sent me the full photo. Captioned, "Even when she's iced out, she's the one serving the cake." That night, I slept peacefully. Because some families can't taste bitterness, even when it's written in frosting. And some daughters stop baking for ghosts. Thursday afternoon, I got an email from a real estate agent I'd never contacted. "Hi, Juliet. Your brother Ezra mentioned you're considering selling the apartment. I'd love to help." I stared at the screen, then at the message thread, copied below it, where Ezra had posed as me, using a fake email to initiate a valuation request. No apology, no shame, just entitlement dressed in business casual. I didn't reply. Instead, I printed the email, highlighted the fake address, and mailed it to my family's lawyer, the same one who'd sent me the ownership transfer request. Attached was a short note. "If they try again, I'll see you in court." No threats. No emotion. Just facts, folded cleanly into paper. The next evening, I hosted my first real dinner in the apartment. 3 friends. 1 coworker.
Sarah.
No blood relatives. We sat cross-legged around a coffee table filled with takeout boxes, mismatched plates, and 2 bottles of cheap wine. Laughter echoed. Music played from my phone. At one point, someone spilled curry, and we laughed even harder. It wasn't Pinterest perfect. It was real. And it was mine. When they left, Sarah hugged me extra long. "You're finally home," she said. And I felt it deep in my ribs. Not because the place was quiet. Not because it was filled. But because it wasn't pretending. It wasn't waiting for people who wouldn't come. It wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone. I looked around the room. No gifts. No inherited furniture. No family hand-me-downs. Just light. Clean air.
Peace.
Sometimes the most expensive thing you own is the space where no one else gets to rewrite your story. Weeks passed. Not a call. Not a knock. Just silence, the kind you earn. Then one morning I got a notification. Ezra's business had gone under. The building he leased had been shut down due to unpaid taxes. A family group chat, one I'd been removed from months ago, was now circulating screenshots of fundraisers, desperate pleas, and hashtags. Mom had posted, "Please help my son rebuild. He's always been so generous." Generous, like skipping my restaurant launch. Generous, like eating cake he didn't bake. Generous, like trying to steal the one thing I had built from the ground up. I didn't comment. I didn't share. But I did donate. $7.61, 1 cent for each year I saved to afford my apartment. Attached was a note. From the girl with no guest list. I didn't need to see their reaction. I already knew. Silence is the most eloquent language when you're done explaining your worth. The following Sunday, I opened my windows, brewed fresh coffee, and sat barefoot on my balcony. Below, the city pulsed with strangers chasing dreams. Above, clouds drifted slowly, directionless, but still moving. In my living room, a small card stood framed on the shelf. "You made a home out of absence." A gift from Sarah. A reminder that sometimes, peace isn't loud. It doesn't shout over the void. It simply fills it. Quietly, fiercely, fully. I smiled. Because they once taught me I wasn't enough. But I had learned to be more than expected. More than needed. More than forgiven. They lost me the moment they refused to show up. And I found myself the moment I stopped waiting. My name is Juliet Martin. And this is the story of how I became whole.